Welcome to Detroit in Black and White Wednesday edition. I'm Adolph Mongo. Good evening, Alan Langle from Deadline Detroit. How you doing?
I'm good. Good evening.
Good. Good evening to Jim Nardoni, former police chief from Trenton.
Good evening.
Good. And our attorney in residence, Vanessa Moss, who is probably going to throw her hat in the ring for probate court. Is that correct?
Oh, that is correct. I am. And this time we won't have no mistakes. We're going to get these signatures, and the top of that petition is going to be absolutely positively correct. So,
okay, go ahead.
Do my thing. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Detroit Black and White, our Wednesday evening edition. Listen, we know that you are watching the greatest show on these YouTube streets. You can catch our show on every social media platform. You guys already know what we want you to do. We want you to do something that is totally free. Like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends about Detroit in Black and White. We also want you to join in the comments. You can also join us by using the link. If you don't want to show your face, you could just use your voice. But thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and share Detroit in Black and White.
Okay. Before we go to our guest, former Attorney General of the state of Michigan, Mike Cox, I just wanted to throw out one question of how do you feel about the shooting in Minneapolis by the ICE agent?
Let me play the video first.
Okay.
Dramatic video.
Okay. I go to you, Jim. You are a law enforcement officer.
Well, I'm retired. Been a long time, but I'll start with this. It's tragic. It's always tragic when somebody loses their life. My problem is this, all right? I don't know whether it's justifiable shooting or not justifiable. We need to let the facts determine whether it's a good shoot or a bad shoot. We can't let the governor of Minnesota, the president of the United States, the DHS director, the mayor of Minneapolis. These are all just propagandists who are spreading their position for political gain. This is outrageous. Whether it's the president of the United States suggesting that it's a justifiable shooting, or the mayor suggesting it's not. None of them have the facts. None of us have the facts. So I think we need to be a little guarded. You know,
what do you think the facts are? What I mean, we see a video there. I mean, you know, it doesn't appear to be self-defense. I mean, you could say, okay, the woman was close to driving by, but that would not be the first.
But Alan, does the video tell the whole story?
Probably not. There's different angles to the video and stuff like that. But look, you know, first of all, you don't shoot. You know, it's just common sense in law enforcement. You don't shoot a driver who's driving off. If the driver was going to hit. I mean, it was that close. If it was that close, the law enforcement person would step out of the way, and not.
Well, you're talking tactics. You're not talking about rights. Sometimes, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. It could be a justifiable shooting, and he still may have had other options. So you have to look at all the facts. And you don't know the facts, Alan. You believe you do because that's what CNN or Fox or whoever.
Well, let's get to Vanessa. Let's get to Vanessa. Vanessa, then we're going to go to our guest. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm weighing in on this. I have to agree. We have to wait and see what all the facts bear out. All we see is a video clip, that short clip. We don't know what happened before. It got to the point where this individual shot this person in the vehicle and she ended up dead. I agree that, you know, when they show things like this, it really is outrageous. And it is to say, it is for us to feel outraged about it. But again, we do not know all of the facts. I will say this, though. You do have these ICE agents, and unlike Jim, a lot of these new ones, they don't have the experience like experienced police officers. You have these young people, and when I say young, I'm talking about young and working for ICE that don't have the experience, that doing this job, and people are not very happy about what they're doing. They've been told, listen, this is what we want you to do. They have decided, okay, this is my job, this is what I'm doing. And unfortunately, you have these kind of things to happen. You have a lot of people in these different
We don't know if they got the truth to kill orders. So
absolutely. We have
there's no question. Well, let's go to our
they
guest.
do. Look,
Go ahead.
Let me say something real quick. If they had
Go
a
ahead.
shoot-to-kill order, it doesn't mean that they get to override. Look, the Minnesota State Police hopefully will be the ones who investigate, because we can't trust the Justice Department. There is no integrity left with the Justice Department. And, I think the individual agents of the FBI, there's integrity, but at the very top with Kash Patel, we're not going to get a fair investigation. If we have the Minnesota authorities of the state police investigating, we'll get a fair, I think, investigation.
Okay, Alan, we're going to bring on our guest, a former Attorney General for the state of Michigan, Mike Cox. Good evening.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Mr. Mongo?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thank you for coming
Thanks
on
for
the
having
show
me.
tonight. You know what? The first question I asked, and we're going to get it back into ICE or whatever, is why do you want to run for governor?
It's like this. My parents came to Michigan when it was the greatest place in the greatest nation that we've ever seen. They were immigrants. My dad was a carpenter. My mom was a maid, and they made it here, in Michigan. In fact, my dad used to tell me, after he walked across the Blue Water Bridge to hitchhike down to meet his sponsor in Detroit, he used to say, Michael, when I came to Detroit, the streets were paved with gold. And he goes, you and your brothers, you've grown up, you've been successful here. And that's what our state offered. And Adolph, that's gone. That's absolutely gone. That my young daughter, who now 42 years old, when she left for the Marine Corps, she moved to Mississippi. She had a little baby, my granddaughter, Grace. And I said, honey, you can't move to Mississippi. Your daughter can't get educated. And you know what's happened? Is now Mississippi fourth graders read at the 9th highest level in America. And Michigan fourth graders read at the 48th level. Mississippi leads in growing in employment and jobs most each and every month, every year. And where we each and every month, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're at second or third worst, highest unemployment in the nation. So we truly used to be great, and we are going the wrong way. And if whatever folks know about me, they know that I don't tolerate any shit. I'm a straight shooter, and I go out and work hard and achieve goals. And I truly believe that we can be great once again. And that's why I'm running.
Okay.
What is it?
Go
What
ahead.
is it that you would do to improve it? What's the problem with our educational system? What would you do?
Alan, let me put it this way. We have the 5th highest spend as a state in the nation right now. All right. We have the 5th highest percentage of our state budget goes to education. And yet we're in the bottom 5 in results. So clearly money isn't the problem. It really goes back to really some simple fundamentals that the 5 of us all grew up on, is that you learn to read through phonics. That's tested and true. Where students are graded and schools are graded, we have better systems. Where there's standards, we do well. And where you empower parents to choose for their children, by and large, children do better, families do better. So look at it. In 2012, in Mississippi, when my grandbaby was in 1st or 2nd grade, the state of Mississippi passed a reader readiness law. A year later, we did the same thing here under Governor Snyder. So in Mississippi, they said, we're going to have every K through 3rd grade teacher learn to teach phonics the same way. Number 2, if kids are struggling in kindergarten or 1st grade, we're going to get in tutoring help right away. if teachers are struggling, we're going to get them coaching. Because if you think about it, most primary school teachers, they're in a classroom all by themselves. And so Mississippi really dwelled on the fundamentals at the same time. And they also allowed more school choice. So parents could push schools to be more competitive. And at the same time, we tried to do the same thing here under Governor Snyder. And that we didn't really, he was a little slow. He wanted to be cooperative with the MEA. And so he didn't bring it all to bear at once. And then when Governor Whitmer came in, she unrolled all that. So what happened when you compare the tale of these two states? Michigan was 21st in fourth grade reading just 12 years ago. Mississippi, 49th. Now Mississippi's 9th, we're 48th. So I think the evidence is pretty clear that you give parents choices and you provide fundamental phonics, you have standards, you grade schools, our education system will turn around just like it did in Mississippi. In Mississippi, where they spend $4,000 less per student than we spend here in Michigan.
But Mike, we got folks that said when the state took over the Detroit public school system back under Governor England, that it got worse. And now we look at a school system that went from 180,000 students to you probably got 30 or 40,000 left in the city of Detroit. If the state didn't, if the state can improve it, who will?
Now, this isn't about the state taking over any local school.
But shouldn't the state be involved in what's happening in our school districts?
100%. And that's what I'm saying, Adolph. With the state of Mississippi, they provided the money for every K through third grade teacher to go learn what's called the science of reading. If you Google the term Mississippi Miracle, you're going to find out all the facts I just talked about. And it's really based on teaching phonics to kids in school, because it's an essential truth that human history has shown us that if a kid can learn to read, then he or she can turn around to then read to learn. And that is the gateway to learning social studies, history, math, geography, religion, everything else. And if you get the fundamentals right in K through third grade, and you require that a kid be able to read before they go to fourth grade, which is what they did in Mississippi, then those standards are set, and those kids carry that forward, and those families carry that forward. In fact, Adolph, do you realize that studies have shown that every single demographic in the state of Mississippi has done better because of this law? In fact, the advance for African-American children in the state of Mississippi is one of the best over the past 12 years of any state in America, even shooting past Massachusetts, which historically has been the best in the country.
Well,
So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It's that simple.
well, Mike, I want to Vanessa Moss. How are you?
Very
You
good.
probably
Thank you.
don't remember me, but you worked as a prosecutor in Wayne County. I worked in judicial assistant. I used to
Right.
see you all the time. I used to be in Judge Crockett's courtroom a lot, the former Judge Crockett.
Yeah.
But at any rate,
A great man.
great man. At any rate, we're talking about education, and we know that you worked in your firm representing those people that were sexually abused at U of M.
Right.
And over the last year, we have seen a lot all across the state of Michigan, and particularly in Detroit, where you have people who are in the position of authorities, be it a coach, be it a teacher, or here lately, a assistant principal, where there are sexual abuse allegations.
Right.
What is your stance on that? Because you're talking about education, but kids have to be able to go somewhere where they feel safe. And so you've had firsthand experience in prosecuting,
Right.
as well as suing for people that have been wronged because of people, sexually abusing them. What is your position on that? Because to me, that goes hand in hand. They have to feel safe in the schools in order to learn.
Well, Vanessa, you touched on it. I spent the first 13 years of my professional career as a Wayne County assistant prosecutor, and I loved it. It shaped my approach to what government should do, right? And so one of the things I learned, and which you probably observed when you were working for Judge Crockett, is how many children, when I say children, I'm now in my 60s, young people went before the judge who didn't get the opportunity for strong fundamental education and oftentimes didn't have a second parent in the home that could help guide them. And that's what really got me on my journey towards studying education all across the country. So part and parcel of that is children have to feel safe in the educational setting. And so I'm all about school safety. I think that one of the ways we address school violence is we have school resource officers in every school. And I think most schools have that now. So part and parcel of a good education is making sure the kids feel secure in school and feel confident in that they're secure.
Well, let's take a break, and we'll come back and continue the conversation with Republican candidate for governor, Mike Cox.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
Before we go into another subject, Jim, why don't you read some of the
Just get ready to say that.
comments?
You want me to do it, or you want Vanessa to do it?
You can do it. You can do it, Jim.
Mr. Cox,
can do
we're
it.
not, we're not here to set you up. In fact, I got some information about you a little earlier today by a guy that shares my same last name that you probably might know. But anyway, we're not here to beat you up. I have some good questions, but
Fire away.
First,
Go ahead,
we're going to
Jim.
go to our viewers.
As Adolph would tell you, I'm a Marine. I like to mix it up. So
Came to the right place.
Okay, I don't trust you, Mr. Mike Cox. Crooked cop, racist cop comes to mind. Why should black voters trust you?
He's reading a comment. That's a comment.
well, I wasn't a
That's
cop.
not
I was
me.
a
That's one of our
prosecutor.
viewers. I don't trust you, Mike Cox.
Okay, all right. A racist cop comes to mind. I spent 13 years where I stood in a courtroom, and I think Vanessa would vouch for this, where I was the only white dude most of the time in the courtroom. It was black jurors, black judges like George Crockett III, and I advocated each and every day for primarily middle to lower class African Americans who were struggling to get by living in the city of Detroit. Those were my clients for 13 years. I'm very, very proud of that. I'm very proud of the hundreds of African American families that I helped while I was a prosecutor. First in doing sexual assault cases, and eventually running the homicide unit for all of Wayne County. And I'm also proud to say that Kim Worthy interviewed me and recommended I get hired. So I don't think she would have done that if she got any vibe that I was some racist.
So where does crime and equal housing opportunities stand with you? With Detroit reporting its lowest crime rates ever, what would you do to continue that trend going down also in other urban areas as well?
Well,
Crime
let me,
equal.
I love that question because I saw the new numbers today. But, I live in Livonia, right? We're about a seventh of the size of the city of Detroit. I think we had one or two murders last year. And if you had the same amount of murders in Detroit as you had in Livonia, it would be at about 10 or 11 as opposed to 165. So why do I say that, Jim? I say that Detroiters, while crime has gone down, are still way underserved and are still placed in danger much more than the average Michigander is. And I view public safety as a human right for anyone who lives in the state of Michigan. So it would be first and foremost would be public safety. And that would start with those who are in neighborhoods where they don't have public safety. The shot putter, or not shot putter,
Shot spotter,
right? So if you go look at Shot Spotter last year, 2024, for the city of Detroit, recorded 54,000 rounds being shot. 54,000 rounds. I think this year, I read earlier, was on pace to have over 40,000 rounds being shot. Under Mike Duggan, under the recently left mayor, there was more murders in the city of Detroit than men and women were killed, Marines, airmen, seamen were killed in Afghanistan. To me, that's a moral shame. And as governor, I would direct resources to help any community in our state that's under the stress that folks in the city are today. I celebrate 165 murders, but in 1965, when there's 3 times the population, there was the same amount of murders. So that tells us that there's a lot more work to be done in the city of Detroit to make Detroiters get the advantages that people in Livonia get, that the people in Fowlerville get, that the people in Manistee get. And that is the right to be safe in your own home, in your own neighborhood.
As you elected governor, being a former Marine, does that mean do you support troops coming into cities like Detroit? ICE agents?
Well, ICE agents aren't troops.
right?
And ICE agents operate in the city of Detroit for a long time. In fact, my wife spent 13 years as a special agent. Her department got moved to what's now ICE. And she did money laundering and drug cases in the city of Detroit and Flint and in Windsor, protecting our border, but also protecting regular, everyday Michiganders. So I wouldn't turn down any federal help, one bit.
And let me read this.
Go ahead, Jim, and then I have
going to read this positive one, and I had a question if I could. He is spot on speaking about the state of education in Michigan. Mississippi is the standard bearer and benchmark of what is possible. I think that's interesting. So go ahead.
You have.
No, go ahead. I have a question, but I'll
so two questions, Mike. One, what is your relationship with the outgoing? He's gone. Your opponent in the governor's race, because I think it's important. Even though you're running as a Republican, he's running as an independent. You also have someone running as a Democrat. You mentioned that you had the relationship with Kim Worthy. How much of an impact of the fact that you're running as a Republican, and I heard you say you want to make Michigan great again. I think that's what you said.
Yes, ma'am.
How much of an impact do you think that will have on you campaigning as a Republican in the state of Michigan, when you have a city like Detroit that is predominantly Democrat, predominantly Black?
Well, I was a Republican the 13 years I was a Wayne County prosecutor. And you know what happened? I represented people, never asked what their party was. I was always about getting the right outcome, getting justice for them. When I was head of the homicide unit, I had 14 lawyers who worked for me. Each and every day, all we did was murder. And my boss was a Democrat, the former mayor of Detroit. And I was there not because I was a Republican or Democrat, but because I was the best person in the office to run that unit. So I'm all about getting things done. And now, does being a Republican shape how I view some issues? Absolutely. Absolutely. It shapes how I view education. I think the MEA has way too much power and has been detrimental to the public education system here in Michigan. By that, I mean, they got Governor Whitmer to undo grading schools. They got Governor Whitmer to no longer require that third graders be able to read before they go to fourth grade. And that has been a huge detriment to the children of our state. So I'm a Republican. I don't apologize for that. But first and foremost, both as a prosecutor, as attorney general, and as governor, I'll be focusing on solving the problems of Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
So David Porter asks, he said that Adolph asked the right question, but he's referring, and I think you said you wouldn't turn down federal aid.
No.
So that, with his question, that's the National Guard if you felt it was necessary in the city of Detroit. Yes or no, I guess is his question. Not my question, his question.
Yeah. So look, if the president said, I'll offer you the National Guard to go stand around Detroit and assist officers in the city, sworn officers of the city of Detroit, I wouldn't turn that down. In fact, if you read what's going on in Memphis, the mayor in Memphis, an African-American Democrat, has welcomed the National Guard in Memphis, and it's had a beneficial impact on fighting and lowering crime in Memphis, which, by the way, Detroit is number 2 in the country in violent crime, despite the new statistics. Memphis is number 1. And the mayor there has the same view, which is, I will take help from wherever it comes because I want to protect each and every one of my citizens. Extra help isn't an embarrassment. Extra help is extra help.
So I want to get in there for a minute, and I'm talking to those people that are watching the greatest show on these YouTube streets, Detroit Black and
The
White.
greatest show.
Listen, it's the greatest show. Listen, this is what we want you to do. You're making comments. That's awesome. We want you to use that link. And you could talk directly to Adolph, Jim, Vanessa, Allen, and more importantly, Michael Cox, who's running for governor of the state of Michigan. He says he wants to make Michigan great again. Some of our viewers feel like that's offensive. One of them said, what does that mean? Is that a code word? But listen, why don't you say what you have to say to the man that's right here? He's asking for your vote. He's asking for your support. Hit that link.
I want to ask Mike Cox.
Let me ask.
Go ahead, Alan, and then
okay, Mike, you're running against one of your opponents is John James, who
Sure.
took my thunder, Alan.
who's vying for the support of President Trump. Are you looking for that endorsement? And question 2 is, do you feel beholden to the president's policies?
Look, I'd be a fool to be running in the Republican primary and not want the support of the president of the United States, Donald Trump. He won Michigan, right? And Republicans look to him for guidance like Democrats used to look to Joe Biden or President Obama for guidance. So absolutely, I'd accept his endorsement. He just won Michigan, a year ago. And he and I share the distinction that we've won Michigan more than once, and I plan on winning it a third time next November. So the answer is yes.
And what makes you different from John James? Why should you be the Republican nominee as opposed to John James?
Yeah. So look, Republicans are hungry for a victory. We haven't had that at the state level. I've beaten Democrats twice. I'm the only Republican who's ever beat Gary Peters.
I remember that.
Yeah, so Gary Peters is like 13-0 in his elections. I'm the only guy beat him. I beat him when I had less money than him.
It was close, though, wasn't it?
Name ID. All right?
It was close. It was razor thin, wasn't it?
Closest statewide race in 100 years. And then,
so can I ask? Go ahead.
And then 4 years later, I won by 11%. So I win in office. I do things. So John James is a good enough dude, but he kind of reminds me of something Adolph Mungo's old boss, Coleman Young, once said, which is when he said it about Jesse Jackson, he ain't run nothing but his mouth. So look, running for governor, you have to run the state. All right. You have 50,000 employees. John James never run that. He's been running for office. He finally got an office where he has a staff of 10 or 11 people. I ran the second most important office in the state of Michigan and did a hell of a job. I actually ran it while we had to reduce the size of the office. My caseload went up by almost 10%, while I had to cut the staff by 20. And as Adolph would tell you, I got the heart of a Marine, which is I charge the hill. I'll charge the hill on education. I'll charge the hill on making us more competitive compared to other states. I'll charge the hill on reducing red tape because, one of my plans is to get rid of the income tax. Why? It's simple as this. The most prosperous states in America don't have an income tax. And in fact, if you look at star athletes and even coaches looking at new jobs in the NFL, one of the things that makes jobs attractive is whether there's an income tax in that state or not. So people make their decisions based on that. I will eliminate that. I will turn around Michigan's education system, and I will attack the hidden tax of overregulation here in Michigan, which destroys as many jobs as our tax system does. By that, I mean, if you're a small businessman like I've been, I've created 25 jobs. I've created a multi-million-dollar business since I left office. So many times when you interact with state government, their decisions take so long that you give up doing a new project, a new entity. And so if you have big national companies who want to locate somewhere in the Midwest and they try to get a wetland permit here in Michigan, it takes months to a year. You go to Ohio or Indiana, they get it done in 4 to 6 weeks. And it's a brand new world. People respect speed and money follows where decisions are made quickly. And we are slow as molasses here in state government and getting things done. That's going to change under me.
And I have a question about execution, but if you want to go to our other
No,
guest,
Mike,
go,
we have a guest.
Sorry.
We have a guest that came on that wants to ask a question.
Miss Sheila.
Miss Sheila. So ask Mike what you want to ask him. Miss Sheila.
unmute, Miss Sheila.
You're on mute, Sheila. Okay, well.
Well, I'll go to my questions while Miss Sheila's getting.
Right.
First of all, you're going to remember this name, Ken Gourlay. Does that name ring a bell to you?
Yeah, he's a sexual predator who we prosecuted.
So I want to ask you about
one of the 260 sexual prosecutors. My office prosecuted when I was AG, the most any attorney general did in our state's history. So yes, I do remember him.
Another question I had for you was when I was a young police executive, I say I was younger. You came to one of our events and you talked about bringing millions of dollars into the community by going after what we would basically call deadbeat dads, and you executed on that. Can you talk a little bit about that? You get a chance to talk about some of the things you accomplished.
Yeah, sure. So it is something I touched on with Vanessa. The one thing I learned was when I was a prosecutor, there were so many young men who ended up in courts who didn't have the guidance of a parent, or a second parent. But they also, you can't change that in government. You can't make families stay together, right? You can't make a mom and dad stay together for the good of the child. But you can make the parent who's not in the home pay child support. And we never called them deadbeat dads because about 10% were actually deadbeat moms. So we call them deadbeat parents.
Gotcha.
And I started the first of its kind deadbeat parent prosecution
Not a nice
unit
word,
in the country, and a child support unit, first of its kind. And people would say, well, are you going to go after poor folk? And I say, no. You know what we did? We said, we don't want to spend resources going after people who can't afford to pay child custody. So we went out and we did a contract with a credit reporting agency. And so if you had the assets, we went after you. And it's been carried on since I started it through Bill Schuette and Dana Nessel. And almost $500 million has been collected now, helped directly tens of thousands of Michigan children. But more so, if you go into family court today, Jim, you'll find that in family courts all across the state, judges will threaten a deadbeat parent. Hey, we're going to refer you to the Attorney General's office, and it starts to move the needle. Kind of like what Mothers Against Drunk Driving did with drunk driving, and it's helped change the culture. And I'm very, very proud of that.
Did
I think
Benny
that's
Blade?
important.
Did Benny Blade ever pay up?
He did. He did. We have Benny Blades, Andrew Toney. We popped a neurosurgeon in Grosse Pointe who owed 1.1 million. And here was the secret: if someone's arrested out of state, they can't make bond until they pay the full amount. So we'd have people calling us from jail in LA, who owed money, and they'd be getting on their credit card or calling their banker, private banker, and they'd be taking care of business right away, Adolph.
Hey, Mike,
Okay.
I have a question. How would you grade Governor Whitmer? What kind of grade would you give her as governor?
I'm trying to run a positive campaign. Look,
I'm not running. I'm not running.
Okay, I'll give her a D. All right, and for this reason, we've grown the size of state government by $27 billion over the past 7 years. So I ask any of you, what new program or service have you gotten for that $27 billion? To give you context, it's a 45% growth in the size of state government. And what one thing has been accomplished with that? Nothing. In fact, the damn roads still haven't been fixed. And it just half of that growth would eliminate the state income tax. Think about that. Just half of the growth under Governor Whitmer would eliminate the state income tax. And people say, well, how important is that, Mike? Well, if you have a young couple and they don't have to pay state income tax for a couple of years, that gives them the ability to buy that first house. For a pensioner on fixed income, not to have to pay a tax on their pension is a benefit. And leaving more money in everyone's pocket certainly is a good thing. And it also sends a signal to the rest of the world, hey, Michigan isn't stuck in the 70s anymore. We're open for business, and we want your jobs. Come here and stay here and build here. We're not going to burden you.
So Miss Sheila has unmuted, is unmuted,
right.
so she can join us and ask whatever questions she wants to ask. Sheila, you have the floor.
I just want to, first of all, thank Detroit Black and White for having real life conversations with the community. First of all, thank the host. Now, getting back to housing, because you mentioned that, Mr. Cox.
Yes.
How would you support the law that Governor Whitmer just put in, signed or whatever, about deed fraud, and especially dealing with seniors and their homes being taken from them? What procedure would you put in place to help seniors that really can't afford these lawyers, because it's a lot of lawyers lawyering, and I don't see a whole lot of justice. So I just want you to let us know, how would you support that? And also, how do you plan to have like a liaison to help, report about these schools not teaching the children right now?
Right.
Okay.
A couple things, Ms. Sheila, and thanks for the question. So I support going after deed fraud and mortgage fraud. In fact, I was Attorney General during the Great Recession. I started the first mortgage fraud unit in the state to prosecute those who were doing that. And some of you may remember that I started a program with the UAW where we brought in mortgage servicers from across the country, and we had fairs. We had 2 different fairs at Ford Field and in the Delta complex in Grand Rapids and up in Saginaw. And directly through my office, we help folks renegotiate. 56,000 homeowners renegotiate their mortgages during the Great Recession in order to stay in their homes. So that's been something I've been long interested in. because part of the promise of Michigan for my parents, like I said, my dad was a carpenter, my mom was a maid, was that a carpenter could afford his or her own home in a good neighborhood with good schools, and they knew each and every one of their kids could get ahead. That's how I grew up, right? Over by Rouge Park in a 950 square foot house with my brothers. And so I want that same promise for everyone, Ms. Sheila. So I would be first and foremost working with the Attorney General, local county prosecutors to make sure we prosecute mortgage and deed fraud. Additionally, do you know that the cost of every new house in Michigan, estimates show, both Democrat and Republican studies show, that about 25% of the cost of a new home is regulation, state regulation and local regulation. So I would do what I could to reduce that burden so folks could get into both new and used homes or previously owned homes cheaper. I'm a big supporter of trying to work with local communities so that they reduce the zoning burden, so it makes it easier for folks to buy, to build houses on mini lots and other ways that other states are using to address housing shortage, because that's clearly one of the things that make a state livable and where people want to stay. And it used to be, and I think most all of us on this panel, we're old enough to know that Michigan historically has had a reputation for being a great place for home ownership, one of the highest home ownership rates in the country. And I think we need to get that back. And we do that by reducing regulatory burden by state and local governments, by prosecuting those who mess with deed and mortgage fraud, and just reducing the burden. Another burden, Oh, I'm sorry, Al.
I just wanted to
got
ask,
a little excited. It gets me excited. Sorry.
Yeah, when you talk about lowering the, easing regulations and stuff like that, how do you do that without compromising the quality and integrity of structures? We see sometimes, buildings and structures get, aren't up to code. And how do you do both?
Well, when my dad was a carpenter for Detroit Public Schools, he used to, like every tradesman had side jobs, would build houses on the side. And Detroit had some of the strongest ordinances in the country. But that was the 50s and 60s. Nowadays, people have the internet and have the ability, and Yelp, and have the ability that to regulate builders in ways that were never possible 10, 20, 30 years ago. So I'm not saying do away with local regulation. I'm not saying doing away with state regulation, but I'm talking about reducing the cost. Because it should not be that the cost of a new home, 25% of that here in Michigan, is driven by government. That makes no sense. So I think we have ways to go after bad actors now that we never had before. I mean, you look at most people under the age of 40 get all their news off of Instagram or off of X. And you look at before I got on, you were talking about Minnesota, and they had not thousands, but tens and maybe hundreds of people taking video, and there's going to be Ring video or alarm video from the houses around there, the cops' body cameras, people on the street, and it's just technology makes things a lot more transparent than it used to be. And I think we should use it as our ally to reduce the cost of housing.
So
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Mike, I want to go to some of our viewers because you have a lot of questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sheila.
Thank you, Ms. Sheila. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Ms. Sheila.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm sure you're going to come back on Detroit Black
I
and
hope
White.
so.
There's a lot of questions, and I have 5 million questions in my head. But
All
we
right,
want
great
to acknowledge some of the comments as well as some of the questions. First of all, I want to say good evening to Tamika Ramey, to Mary Kimmett, Eric Brown. Also, Miss Suzuki, she says Mississippi has 24.44% chronic absenteeism rate, yet education improves. And she has 3 question marks, which I think is a good question. Karen McCrimmon says ShotSpotter picked the cracker too. Get real. Kenneth Reed says it's used to be more rounds fired than that not so long ago. You also, Tamika Ramey says she's a former Marine. You also have David Porter. He says, Adolph asked the right question. He just stated it wrong. Do you support the National Guard coming to the cities? What about car insurance? Michigan still has one of the highest rates in the country.
Right.
Terry McCrimmon says, great again. Are you saying Michigan isn't great? We also have Mr. 1213. He says he liked Mike Cox's answer about ICE and the National Guard. He's not going to change his stance on that like another candidate had before. Par Org says he wants to know if you believe that Detroit had to file for bankruptcy in 2013. Terry McCrimmon says, let's put the National Guard in Birmingham or Grosse Pointe. And
I'm good with that too.
Tamiri Kimmon says, why do you think Duggan switched parties? Kenneth Reed asks, what is your position on bringing forth both employment and entrepreneurship opportunities to the city of Detroit for the people who live below the poverty line? Of course, you're going to get a question about you investigating that party at the Manoogian Mansion and the urban legend. Also, G Money Hollywood says, with Southeast Michigan still leaning towards the auto industry and EV careers are being faded out, what other industries will you campaign for to make Southeast Michigan more diversified and competitive in the marketplace? And so on and so forth. I could keep on reading. The point of the matter is you have all these questions. I hope you go back and watch Detroit in Black and White and answer these questions. And if you can't answer them tonight, when you come back, you need to be able to answer those questions. But those are some of the comments.
How about Dwayla's question?
Yes, and D Love, thank you so much for watching. We also have Tracy Huff that's watching. Thank you so much.
Jill Sheridan, our old friend, our good friend. I won't say
another
old.
question that asks, in addition to that, Par Orks asked another question. He says, did the Klansmen with 34 felonies operating the White House violate the War Powers Act with regards to Maduro? Mr. Cox.
And that's Dwayla's question. What do you think about?
It says you're right about the state income tax appeal. They've had a lot of candidates turn down jobs in states where the income tax is much higher than where they are. Let's get rid of the Michigan state tax. Jill Sheridan said, do you have any concern over the sale of farmland to data companies? And do you think farmers are hurting financially so they're selling out to them? Aaron Brown says candidate Cox was spot on when talking about how the current governor and the Democrats caused education in the state to drop to a bottom 5 education ranking. So on and so forth. So you got a whole lot that you can answer.
Well, what I'll do is I'm going to have a town hall in Detroit. Or
what is that?
Well, I don't have it set up, but I will, and these folks can all come and talk to me there because they're great questions. I love to have the time to answer them. But
let me ask you a question, Mike. What is the function of the State Board of Education? Why do they exist? I see no purpose for them.
To waste money. That's their function. They waste money. We have a problem with kids can't learn the ABCs, and they're worried about sex education mandates. And anyone who has a kid or grandkid who's in 8th grade knows that they learn everything they need to off of their phone on sex education. We ought to be getting. We ought to.
It's not just that. We talk about absenteeism. We're talking about poverty. All those things go hand in hand. You could talk about the Michigan Education Association or Michigan Department of Education and why it should exist, and you could talk about how money is being wasted. But there's more things that go into that pot than what you're talking about.
But the whole point,
100%. But I think Adolph had it exactly right. Even Governor Whitmer says the Michigan Department of Education is a waste of time. Is trying to work her way around it. The most important power a governor has is the power of the purse in terms of shaping education, and that's what I would do. And that's what I would. And all the problems people talked about, truancy and poverty. Mississippi has it. Mississippi is a poorer state than Michigan, but over the past 12 years, they've transformed themselves to the good, while we've transformed ourselves to the bad. And whatever way you want to shake that out, the victims are the kids of Michigan, and the winners are the kids of Mississippi, like my granddaughters. And
but what I see, Mike,
I simply want the kids of Michigan to get the same opportunities that my granddaughters get in Hernando, Mississippi. And
well,
I think that's a moral requirement.
we're not getting it. And I look at what's happening in Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Pontiac, Benton Harbor. Yeah, I'm naming all these districts, predominantly African Americans. They just been left out in the cold. And when I read on the article in the newspaper on the internet that says the Detroit School Board just gave a superintendent another raise, he's making about $500,000 a year over a sinking ship. That's criminal. That's why you keep telling this guy that he's doing a great job when you look at the numbers and you look at all the problems that these kids that go to Detroit public schools face every single day.
100%. And it's Livonia, Redford, South Redford, Westland as well. I mean, and we've rotted from the top down. We don't have the leadership.
Right.
We don't have the will, and we're wasting money, and our children are getting further and further behind.
Now, I wouldn't send my kid to these schools. Detroit says, "Oh, you got 3 schools." And this city is the largest city in the state of Michigan, and you can only name 3 high schools you can send your teenage kid to. That's criminal.
And you've touched on it. You know, it used to be at the turn of the century, Detroit had like 190,000 students. It now has 36,000 plus Detroit public schools. And the parents have voted with their feet, right? And they're in Southfield and elsewhere, Redford, Livonia, Canton, Westland. And of the kids who are in the city limits, over half go to charter schools. Another 10% go to schools of choice. And to me, one of the shameful things of the former mayor is that he does not support charter schools when over the half the kids in his city, their parents went to charter schools because they weren't getting what they needed from public schools.
Well, because I blame our former mayor for being part of that team that helped take in the last 20 years, take the Detroit public schools to the bottom. So no, he didn't talk. He never talked about our issues with the public schools. And you are right. Now, if you were governor, do you support the state giving money to charter schools?
I do, because the reality is parents who are trapped in neighborhoods with poor or failing schools need alternatives. And I'm not saying every charter school is the answer. And I'm not saying that every charter school is great. We should demand more of charter schools and public schools. It's that simple. And we do that by ensuring they all teach phonics. We do that by ensuring they're all graded. So every parent knows, every grandparent knows. And even if you don't have a child or grandchild in the local schools, as a taxpayer, you should know how they're performing. And it should be available to you really easily. We don't do that. And part of the problem of our state is we don't demand enough out of our public officials. Our expectations are so low. And that's why yesterday, the city of Detroit celebrated 165 murders. But it's still the 3rd most violent city in the country. Now, it's good it's going down, but the reality is going down everywhere. And if we're going to compete to keep our children here, if we're going to compete to add more people to the state of Michigan, we have to stop celebrating mediocrity and bad outcomes, and we ought to demand more of our public officials.
I bet the 165 families that died, they not celebrating.
They're not celebrating.
Right.
There's no question. Well, Jim, Vanessa, Alan, last question for Mike Cox.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I'm going to
Right.
go to a couple of viewers. Tamiri Kimmett, she asked 2 questions. She said, Black children get the least amount of funding. How would you address the wealth gap? And she asked about the Black and white wealth gap. Could you please address that?
Well, that's not an easy question to answer, but I'll put it this way. And I don't want to defer and say everything's like Mississippi, because it's not. But the reality is, all under Proposal A from 30 years ago, about 80% of the schools get the same amount of funding based on the individual head count. It's the foundational grant, when you add in federal funds, is roughly about $15,000 per student now. So, quite frankly, when people say that African American children don't get the same amount of funding, that's true in some cases, but in other cases, it's a cop-out for folks not educating African American students. It's a cop-out for schools who are getting the same amount of money per student as other schools are that aren't educating their students. And that's why I think transparency matters. Now, Vanessa, do I say, well, there's problems in the home and historic disparities don't play a role? Of course they do. But ultimately, if we're going to give each and every one of our kids a fair shot, we have to stop having excuses and start producing outcomes.
Alan.
I want to make this one comment, though. I will say this. When I close my eyes for a hot second, I swear, you sound just like our former mayor. You said that you get things done, that you're going to get things done. I swear, you sound just like him. But go ahead, Alan.
I question. Gretchen Whitmer has been criticized sometimes for giving away too many tax abatements to wealthy corporations like General Motors, who haven't actually.
I'm sorry. Did you say Gretchen Whitmer or Mike Duggan?
Gretchen Whitmer.
Right. Because I didn't touch on this.
Okay.
I didn't touch on this.
Okay.
The average home, I didn't do it with Miss Sheila. I don't know where she lives, but the average homeowner in the city of Detroit pays 67 mils on their home. If you move to where I live, Livonia, it's 70% less at 40 mils.
That's crazy.
And we don't pay developers to build buildings, but in Detroit, Mayor Duggan gives out your property taxes to multi-billion-dollar developers and
Like
not give
Dan
you
Gilbert?
relief.
Like Dan Gilbert. And then
Yes.
also General Motors has also gotten a lot of tax abatements and stuff and haven't delivered on what they were supposed to deliver.
Well, they abandoned the Renaissance Center, that's they should be in court.
But
They
there's
should
other-
pay.
Yeah, there's other projects as well that General Motors has bailed out on, but gotten the money for. How do you lure companies without giving away the farm?
Well, in the short run, it's hard, but the reality is most people will go where the ground is fertile and where you have responsive local government. Let me put it this way, Alan. You know, under Governor Whitmer, the state's given away, it varies, it's hidden, anywhere to $5 to $10 billion to big corporations that attract jobs here. At the same time, she's taken $27 billion from all of us to do that. Now, if everyone got to keep that $27 billion, a lot of smart people out there would say, well, I'll start my own business and create my own jobs. Because the reality is, most businesses in America start without the government giving them money. The reality is, in America, most businesses buy their own land. The government doesn't buy it for them. The reality is, in America, most businesses pay their full tax share, right, to their local government. They don't get abatements, and they still succeed. So as governor, I would lower the burden on every business, and I wouldn't pick and choose winners, because here's the reality. The richest guy in the world, Elon Musk, he's picked winners in business. He's picked losers. Go to the smartest man or woman on Wall Street. They pick winners and they pick losers. How's the governor of Michigan know how to pick winners or losers? I'm like let me get out of the way, lower the tax burden on folks, and let winners identify themselves. Right? It's to me that's the way you build an economy.
Jim, you have a final question.
I just want to say thanks for coming on, Mr. Cox. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
taking our questions of all our viewers. They're not easy to work with, but they're honest, and hopefully you'll come down and you'll come back on the show and you'll communicate with our viewers and the people that live in Wayne County. You're from Wayne County, so you should be communicating with the people in Wayne
You
County.
know, hey, I plan on being back the first Wednesday in January 2027 after I've been inaugurated, and you'll be the first podcast I do then.
Okay, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Have a
very
happy
much.
New Year.
Good luck.
You too.
Thank you.
And we'll be back. And that was good. I hope we can get more candidates to come on.
Yeah,
I
I'm sure we'll
I
get more
reached out
candidates.
to El Said's campaign.
What you say?
I reached out today. I've heard from Abdul
Good.
El
Can we
Said.
take Par Org's question really quickly? He asked about the shooting, and I don't believe that anybody suggested there was a firearm. The lady in the car had a firearm, so I guess your answer is no there, right?
And I was wrong about the lady because I thought she was Somalian.
American,
And she wasn't.
34 years old. She's a
There's no question about it. We'll be back on Friday to continue the discussion of Detroit Black and White. I thought this was a good show. We got a lot of interest from our viewers, and we
Yeah.
need more people to come on. Thank you, Miss Sheila, for coming on, and we need to get more interaction with you because you got some great questions, some real great questions. And Mike Cox,
tells his own.
I'm seeing this is going to be a dirty campaign because he's going after his former boss and his former friend. They went to high school together. They went to U of M together, undergrad, law school, and now he's coming
sounds
out.
just like him, though. He sounds just. I mean, that,
Well, they grew. They was in the Young Republican Party.
right.
So anyway,
And he took
we'll
a
be
shot
back
at
on
John
Friday.
James. Took a
Yeah.
shot at John James here.
Fuck John James. We'll be back on Friday.
hopefully he'll come on the show.
Thank you,
See
everybody.
Well, you can sweet talking.